Hey guys, hope everybody's doing well today. What I have for you today are some study tips from a vet student. So, I'm just gonna go ahead and get started and jump right into the list. I just wanna say, I've always been studying my whole life. I was in the IB program in high school, and I got my master's after I got my bachelor's, and now I'm in vet school. So I've done a monumental amount of studying in my life, and these are some of my best tips. There's about 9 of them, not 10. So my 9 best tips. The first one is, most importantly, understand the material instead of just memorizing it. I can't tell you, this is the best tip of all time, because just sitting there memorizing it, trying to memorize words, isn't going to do anything for you. If you understand a concept and you're asked a question about it, all you have to do is kind of work through that concept in your mind, and you will get to that answer as long as you understood it. So understand, don't memorize. My second tip, I actually learned this in Reader's Digest recently, and I wish I learned it way more early on in my career because it is so helpful. I'm a visual learner, so it's even more helpful to me, but I think even people who aren't visual learners, this would be helpful because of the ways that our brain works. So when you're studying something, you want to visually picture it, and you can even do things like picture the objects or the sequence of events around your house or around a different place. And then when you have to recall them, you can picture the actual things you're trying to recall instead of just memorizing a list of words. I promise you, try it. It is amazing. And because our brains actually have much more visual storage space than verbal, like word storage space. So we can store like vast amounts of visual information. So just kind of picturing it and recalling it that way is super helpful, especially if you're a visual person like I am. My next tip is, when you're studying, to write things down. I've gone back and forth with this one over the years, and sometimes I feel like it's kind of a waste of time to write things down. It depends on the subject for me, but I have found throughout vet school that when I do write things down, I tend to be able to remember the way I wrote it and how it looked, and then I can recall it much easier because it made it like kind of a more personal experience for me, if that makes sense. So, and even if you're not going to write everything down, with some subjects, I find it helpful to write everything down and kind of make my own study guide in my own handwriting, like handwritten, not typed. But if I don't have time for that, just write down the things you don't think you're going to remember. And then it makes this nice little quick reference right before the test. You just look through them really quick. You go in and boom, like it's fresh in your memory, like maybe things that are difficult for you, concepts that you didn't really understand, things like that. Just write them down, make yourself a quick reference guide that you can go back to multiple times and kind of cement that subject. Because if you understand something, you don't need to keep going over it and over it. If you can just narrow down the things you don't understand and hone in on those, that's a really helpful tip. Alrighty, that really helped me for like physics and stuff like that, especially if you're in those type of classes. My next tip, take really good notes. Okay, our lectures are recorded at my vet school, so it's easier for me to watch it at home and focus better and take really good notes during the lecture. That being said, I don't pause it or anything like that, so this is something you can do even if your lectures aren't recorded and you're just in regular class. Just put in that extra 110% in class and do the work while you're there. Like, I'm telling you, if you're gonna go all the way there and sit there and pay for the classes or take the classes or whatever, I promise you, just put in all the effort while you're there. For me, it kind of helps to, the more I write down, the more it helps me if I kind of like write down a little story about what the professor said, or just write, just a little something on each slide about this is what they said, this is the take home of the slide. It really helps me when I'm going back to study and I'm looking at that slide. Like if the slide doesn't make sense, I can look at what I wrote and I'm like, it clicks and I got it. So just put in that extra effort while you're in class. I'm telling you, that makes a world of difference. Alrighty, on to the next thing. My next thing, I didn't start doing this until vet school. And when I was little, my mom actually told me that this is like cheating. So it's kind of like when you have to memorize a list, making a mnemonic device for it, or coming up with some weird, funny way that your brain will remember something. Like if it's weird words you won't remember, making it into an alliteration or some kind of a story or some kind of like multiple word sentence, or doing a mnemonic. I always thought it was ridiculous and it wasn't going to help me. I'm telling you, in vet school, this has really helped me. And just coming up with a kind of like a weird, funny way to remember it, it just sticks in my brain. And so when I need to recall, like especially really weird information that doesn't really make that much sense and I wouldn't be able to remember it because it's not intuitive, coming up with some sort of funny way you can put the letters or the words together, anything like that, is going to store it in your long-term memory and make it easier to recall. So trust me, it works. All right, my next tip is to test yourself. So you can be sitting there memorizing massive amounts of information for hours and hours, and you can be like, oh, I think I got this, and it's not stored in your memory. You have to test yourself. So whether it's kind of reading a slide and then repeating it back or explaining it to yourself, that can be really helpful. And I wouldn't just vomit the information back up. There's my cat. What I do is I'll look at a slide, I'll understand the material, and I'll go back and I'll kind of like repeat it to myself in a sequence that I understand it, in the way that the thought process works for me, so that I know I understand the concept. And then that leads into my next tip, which is if you have little furries, your pets, or if you have like friends or your family or a roommate or anything like that, you can actually teach it to them. And this is a really great way to remember something and to know that you've kind of mastered something, is when you can teach it to somebody else. So like when I'm not with my friends from school, I'll teach things to my animals. They're always sitting next to me whenever I'm studying. So what I'll do is I'll just sit there and I'll kind of explain it like I'm teaching a class. I used to be a substitute teacher, so I think it's fun. So I'll just pretend like they're my little class and I'll just go ahead and kind of teach it to them. And then that way it makes it more fun, and you know you understood it, and it's just really fun. And then if you're interested in teaching someday, it's good practice too. So that's another tip. And then that kind of leads into my next tip, is just kind of discussing things with your colleagues or your peers if they're available, or if you're at school with them, or if you guys want to study together, whatever. That is so helpful. I'm telling you, in anatomy especially, this helped me. I'm not really a group studier. I've never done that. I'm always like, I'm a very independent studier. I'm autodidactic, I guess you would call it. I like to teach myself things. That's the way I learn. But this is an invaluable study tip. Like if you have a conversation with one of your friends or your peers about a subject, I guarantee you're going to remember like what you said to them, what they said to you. It just somehow opens up these different pathways in your brain and it makes you remember it. So try that one out, even if you're not a group studier, because it definitely helped me out, especially in anatomy. Okay. My last tip, this one is kind of simple, but just make it fun for yourself. If you're making it boring for yourself, it's going to be a miserable experience and you're not going to like it and you're not going to want to do it. So try to make it fun. Like I said, you can talk to your friends, talk to your family about it, teach it to your pets, what have you. And then go ahead and just make it fun for yourself and try to enjoy yourself as much as you can with it. And kind of think about like, why are you in this class? What is it, even if it's not a class you love, where is it going to get you? What's your ultimate goal? And try and keep that in mind and keep a positive attitude about it. And just remember what your end goal is, why you're there, why you're trying to do it, even if it's not your favorite class. And try and see some value in the class and what you can get out of it. and just kind of make it fun for yourself in any way that you can. So those are my study tips for you guys, straight from the vet student's mouth. I'd love to hear any other ideas of any videos you guys would like me to do, and this one was really fun to make. I have a lot of experience with studying, and I thought this could help you guys out. So if you like this video, please click the like button and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more. And thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. There's actually one thing I forgot to mention. This would be my 10th tip, and I would say it's one of the top most important tips, probably right after understanding and not memorizing. I don't know why I forgot it. So I didn't always do this, but back in the day I didn't do this, and I've noticed a huge improvement with my grades since I've done this. Is the morning before the test, review the information. Even if you don't have a ton of time, just kind of look over it really quick, just to jog your memory, just to get your brain in that setting, and you know, just look it over, give it a once over, and then trust me, it helps you so much when you're trying to recall that information. So that's my 10th study tip for you guys. Thank you guys again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.